all of you use computers on a daily basis. It's become an object of everyone's life. It is something that people use without really thinking about it. It's just a tool that helps you get stuff done. However, there's always a dark side to everything, and that would be computer security. There's upsides and downsides, but generally when you think of computer security, you're thinking about the negatives. So an example of how you use computer security is if you were to be running a bank where you would be submitting different financial information online. You'd want to make sure that information is secure and encrypted so that people can't just access it really easily, otherwise we'd have a lot of theft going on. So the basics of what would happen.
All teachers, please allow students who are walking in late right now to come into your class without penalty. Some of our buses have been delayed due to weather. Thank you very much.
Take a second, deep breath.
The most basic form of an attack on a computer would be a password attack. That's because the password gets you access to pretty much everything. And pretty much everything is safeguarded by a password because it's the most simple way to protect stuff. There are different methods that you can go about getting a password from someone. So you can start guessing things, okay, if you know the person. And that is an easy way to gain access. A lot of times it's someone's pet. If you ask them, what's your favorite pet? The name of your favorite pet, they'll tell you, and it's likely that followed by a number. Or if not, just that. And that's why you should make passwords not something so obvious. Password attacks can be either offline or online attacks. Online attacks are attacks where you are connecting to someone's computer and attacking it over the internet. Offline attacks is where you don't need the internet. You have the hash, which is the encrypted version of their password, on your computer. That's much faster because the computer does not have to worry about the bandwidth. There's no issues with lag between over distance, and so it's going much slower on an online attack, and there's also traces of stuff left on the other person's computer, which is a major negative if that person knows much about computer security because the information is always stored. On to my next point. Information is always stored. You're always tracked, you're always logged. Everywhere you go, the place you went knows you were there, and your computer also logs that you were there. Servers that you go on, servers i.e. Amazon. Amazon is running off of a server, and it has a web page. It's going to store your IP address there. Your IP address links it back to your internet, not your computer. If someone were to want to find you, they would go back to your internet connection or your IP address. IP address means Internet Protocol address. When you get back to the IP address, you have a router. Many different people can connect to that router, like at Starbucks or Pete's, or whichever one you prefer. I prefer Pete's. And if you're connected to there, it doesn't mean that everyone can find out who did it. However, your computer has a MAC address. This is specific to your network adapter. So this has nothing to do with your software or anything. It has to do with the actual physical hardware is assigned something called a MAC address. This identifies your computer. It's not stored in a database, so they don't have names attached to them. But if someone committed a crime on a network and they used your computer, the next time you connect to that network, they would know that the same person is on there. So people who do issues with or hacking at a place like Starbucks or Pete's, that is what they have to worry about. And it's always safer to do that from there because it's harder to track you back. So, next thing, when you are at Starbucks or Pete's or an airport or anything, your computer has a system it can use called Bluetooth. This is now on nearly every device you can use nowadays, and it's also a big security risk. When you're on places like this, you don't need Wi-Fi to be at risk. Your Wi-Fi can be off. However, if your Bluetooth is on or discoverable, it's going to be transmitting and receiving packets. There are programs that collect these packets and piece them together and can then get access into your system. And that's something that some people like to do. So they'll just sit there in the airport and they'll see if they can get financial data off someone's computer. Obviously, you don't want people getting your financial data. Data on hard drives or solid-state drives is always at risk. When you delete it, it's not actually deleted. as you probably know, computers store information in a series of ones and zeros, or binary. On hard drives, there is a magnetic positive or nothing there, meaning 1 or 0. When you delete a file, which it includes a file header and the file itself, you're just removing the file header. The file itself is still there, and it may be in many different pieces all over the hard drive, but you haven't actually deleted it. So running an undeletion program or any sort of recovery software, you can piece that file back together. So that's why if you want to sell a computer, you want to make sure that you do a secure delete, which involves the computer going over every single section of the hard drive, replacing the ones with zeros, so you can't recover those files again. This is also helpful for non-malicious reasons, such as recovering photos. I recently had to do it with my mom's computer. She had a bunch of photos that got wiped when she was trying to reinstall her operating system, and they weren't backed up like she had thought they were. And I was able to get quite a few of them back, which is a really amazing thing with the technology nowadays. Something you got to watch out for with Twitter, Facebook, websites that you're on is something called phishing. Not phishing as in throwing a line, but PH and then ishing. And this refers to when you get an email or something saying, hey, can you confirm who you are? Can you enter your password here and put in some information so we know it's you? They'll actually link you to a website that isn't it isn't associated with Twitter. It's someone who made something look like Twitter, and you can put information in and then they'll have your Twitter account. I had a couple emails like this, and so you got to watch the address bar. It may look similar. TVVITTER is the one that I had noticed when I got linked to it. And so at first glance, it may look like Twitter, but it's not actually Twitter. And for stuff like Facebook, people can get personal information, and you don't want people having your personal information. For security on Wi-Fi at areas like airports or P's or Starbucks, there's something called a proxy server, which what this is it links your network back to, or your connection back to a server somewhere. Or if you have a computer set up at home, you can route your network connection through, it goes to the router and to your home and then up to the internet. And the benefit of this is it's encrypted when it goes through the router. So if someone's sitting there at Starbucks trying to get into your computer, it's a lot harder and it's not really worth it for their time to go in and try and get your stuff. Encryption is, at a most basic level, using an algorithm of sorts to hide a password. You need to have the algorithm to get the password back, in a sense. So what you have is when you encrypt a password, you get a hash. And that hash is an encryption of that password, and you have to run a word list, which is a list of words, some of them getting very large, against that password. And when it finds two where the hash is the same, that's how it knows that it found the password. And you can try that along with the login info, and you can usually get in. I have a screenshot here of a specific operating system that is made just for stuff like this, getting into other people's computers, or for people who use it in a good way, just testing your own systems to make sure that they're actually good. So as you can see, there's privilege escalation, which would include password attacks and spoofing. Spoofing would be changing your MAC address so you can actually be entirely anonymous, or very close to entirely anonymous, in public places. There is forensics and stuff. That would be, as I said, recovering data from hard drives. There's stress testing different situations involving servers and different things like that. Reverse engineering would be taking, say, a program that you got and trying to get the source code of it so that you can crack that program and not have to pay for it legally, which is what a lot of people do, and they upload it on the internet, and that's how you get pirated software. And exploitation tools would be going in through pre-known areas that could be exploited in current operating systems, and there's a lot of that stuff that's just on the internet. You can just find all that out. So, lastly, I ask that when you're in a public area, be aware that there's other people that can be watching what you're doing. Be aware that when you're on the internet, everyone knows where you're going. It's all not publicly available, but can all be easily accessed. It's really not, you're not really safe. Now, I'm not saying, cover your head in tin foil, but, just be aware that when you're going places on the internet or with your computer, you really aren't as anonymous as you may feel that you are. And your data is really quite important. People underestimate how easy it is to get people's financial information if you don't follow instructions on websites or if your connection is not encrypted and such. So I just ask that you keep that in mind whenever you're using a computer or you're in a public place, and hopefully you can learn from this.